Hello everyone, my name is Eileen Alcaraz and today I will be presenting to you guys on race and gender. So my prompt was, according to Morris, how has a history of struggle impacted the behavior of Black girls, and how and why does the behavior of many poor Black ghetto girls contribute to their treatment in the school system and in the justice system? We're going to start with talking about the struggle throughout history. According to Morris, history has shaped the way Black girls behave. For many years, they have struggled and battled against gender inequality and racial oppression. Under slavery, the education of Black people was illegal and considered a punishable offense. Enslaved Africans or other people of color were fined or whipped if discovered reading or writing. Looking back at history, young women and girls, especially minorities, have always been expected to be silent and obedient. According to Morris, good girls do not look or act like boys. They spend the majority of their time in controlled environments such as school, family, home, or church. They should be highly respectful to the men in their lives, and they are not sexually promiscuous. According to Morris, good Black girls are supposed to be all of these things, even while the males around them are not held to the same standards. When Black girls rebel against these expectations, they are labeled bad girls or ghetto girls. For Black girls to be ghetto represents a certain resilience to how poverty has shaped racial and gender oppression. To be loud is to demand to be heard, and to have an attitude is to reject the doctrine of invisibility and mistreatment. To be a ghetto Black girl, then, is to reinvent what it means to be Black, poor, and female. All these are reasons why women have decided to take a stand and fight for change. Defiance is a daring or bold resistance to authority, and it is often viewed as something that is bad. But Black women have interpreted defiance as something that is not inherently bad. Instead, it is essential for their freedom. Such Black women um, who are labeled heroes now are Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth because they fought for their rights and took a stand when no one else would. But these defiant acts contribute to the mistreatment in the school and justice system. Black girls who have challenged authority or attempted to negotiate poverty and racial isolation by participating in underground economies have been sent away to group homes, training schools, or even detention centers in an attempt to transform bad girls into good girls. Behavior and education. The criminalization of Black girls is much more than a street phenomenon. It has extended into our schools. This is a major problem because it disrupts one of the most important protective factors in a girl's life, her education. One of the most persistent traits among girls who have been labeled delinquent is that they have failed to establish a meaningful and sustainable connection with school. About 48% of Black girls who are expelled nationwide do not have access to educational services. Black girls are 16% of the female student population, but nearly one-third of all girls refer to law enforcement and are more than one-third of all female school-based arrests. A Black girl's nonconformity to traditional gender expectations may prompt educators or schools to respond more harshly to the negative behaviors of Black girls. For example, a 2007 study found that teachers often perceive Black girls as being loud, defiant, and precocious. They also said that Black girls were more likely than their peers to be reprimanded for being unladylike. Black girls as young as 6 years old have been arrested for throwing tantrums in classrooms. Other studies have found that arrests appear to be justified by the student's display of insubordinate, disrespectful, uncooperative, or uncontrollable behavior. These labels identify and underscore the use of discipline, punishment, and the juvenile system to regulate social status. They also reflect a consciousness that refuses to honor the critical thinking and leadership skills of Black girls. They often cast them as social deviants rather than critical respondents to their oppression. The exclusionary discipline is any type of in-school discipline that removes students from their usual learning environments. Examples of this include in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, expulsion, and etc. The exclusionary discipline has grown in use over the past few decades and disproportionately impacts minority students, particularly Black and Latina students. Girls of color, especially Black girls, face much harsher school dis- school discipline than their white peers, but are excluded from the current efforts to address the school to prison pipeline. Examples of extreme discipline for Black girls in school include in May 2013, Ashlyn Avery, a 16-year-old diabetic girl in Alabama, fell asleep while reading Huckleberry Finn during her in school suspension. When she did not respond, the suspension supervisor allegedly threw a book at her and ordered her to leave the classroom. As she was leaving the room, a police officer allegedly slammed her face into a file cabinet and then arrested her. Another example is 6-year-old Saleka Johnson was arrested in Georgia in 2012 for having a tantrum in her classroom. Also in 2011, 7-year-old Michelle Mitchell was arrested with her 8-year-old brother after they got in a fight on the school bus. The ghetto's impact on the student's identity of a Black girl also play out the classroom as neglect. According to Gloria Ladson Billings, this is referred to as granting Black children permission to fail. Teachers who have lower expectations of Black girls grant them permission to fail, while other students are encouraged to succeed and overcome challenges. In schools, we also see zero tolerance policies. These were developed in the 1990s in response to fears of crime and violence in schools. These policies require schools to hand down the same punishments for behaviors regardless of the content. These punishments are often very harsh, and research has shown that these policies have not made schools any safer. Instead, they often lead to higher dropout rates. Low expectations have devastating impacts on the education of young Black girls. They are academically discouraged and allowed to do poorly with no intervention or help until it is too late. All these tactics increase the likelihood for students to have contact with the criminal and juvenile justice system. Next, we have ghettoized opportunities. Black girls in poor areas often have poor relationships with schools. Their behavior is often treated with extreme and harsh discipline, and unjust policies like the No Child Left Behind and standardized testing lead Black girls into thinking they are not intelligent enough for school. Due to how these tests are written, Black girls often struggle to perform well on these tests, limiting their academic potential and even hurting their relationship with learning and school. Because of the poor relationships with schools, many Black girls do not bother finishing high school or even continuing to college, even though this is very riskful because high levels of education massively impact career opportunities for many Black girls. Lastly, the justice system. Black girls are also directly impacted by criminalizing policies and practices that render them vulnerable to abuse, exploitation, dehumanization, and under the worst circumstances, even death. Examples of this in the justice system include 18-year-old Shaniqua Proctor died in police custody after she was arrested for disorderly conduct. Even in high-profile cases involving boys, we often fail to see the girls who were right there alongside them. After the fatal shooting of Tamir Rice, the officers tackled his 14-year-old sister to the ground and handcuffed her. Not only had she just watched her little brother die at the hands of an officer, but she was forced to grieve his death from the backseat of the patrol car. The justice system has a massive amount of disproportionate minority contact. There's an increase in the number of girls in contact with the criminal juvenile justice system. These girls are disproportionately Black or Latina, and approximately 40% of them are members of the LGBTQ plus community. A common trait among delinquent girls is that they have always failed to keep a meaningful and sustained connection with school. So what's the result? The result is that these Black girls will engage in delinquent activity as a last resort. Poor Black girls who have given up finding opportunities through education will look for opportunities through other methods. These include committing crimes such as prostitution, drug sales, and etc. That is it for my presentation. Thank you guys so much for listening. And if you have any questions, please just leave them below in the discussion post. And thank you.